Have you ever stood on top of a mountain and just taken in the world around you? I have. Standing on top of a 14er, it's hard not to contemplate the beauty of God's creation. What's that? You're impressed I've climbed a 14er? Well, maybe not climbed. Okay, I drove up the highest paved road in North America to get to over 14,000 feet, and then walked a slightly sloped path to get another 150 feet to the summit. I'm not the athletic type, okay?
Oh, come on. All right, Jennifer, get rid of it.
Do you see what I mean? Now that you've seen that, I'm going to ask you to just have pity on me by subscribing to this channel, liking this video, and letting me know in the comments just how athletic you are. I am clearly not athletic and never have been. But the saint we're talking about today is. Saint Pier Giorgio Frassati loved mountain climbing. He saw it as a metaphor for obtaining holiness. He loved the challenge and saw it as a spiritual discipline. He wasn't just known for his athleticism, though, but also his charity. Frassati was born into a highly political Italian family in 1901. Although he struggled in school and was known as the Terror, because apparently he really liked to play practical jokes on people, his devotion to Christ was never questioned because he showed his love for Christ through his actions. As an example, one day when he was just a child, a mother and her son came and knocked on his door. When he noticed that the child was barefoot, he took off his own shoes and gave them to the kid. This is just one of many stories of his generosity. He wanted to make sure that all people were treated with dignity and charity. There was a problem, though. You see, as he became an adult, World War I came to an end. And even though Italy had been on the winning side, their country and the people had been devastated. Unemployment, poverty, and illness were rampant. Two movements were rising quickly out of these ashes. One side was backing a communist revolution, like they had just seen take place in Russia. The other side was rallying behind fascism and a man who you might have heard of, Benito Mussolini. This was breaking into literal fights in the street. So, given Frassati's desire to help the poor, which side do you think he agreed with? You're thinking the communist, right? Social justice and all? No, you guys, no. He was on the side of Christ, and he was on the side of the Catholic Church and spoke actively against both the communist and the fascist. He got into some trouble for it, too. In fact, he was arrested after joining a Catholic demonstration against fascism. Although he could have received special treatment due to the political status of his family, particularly his father, Frassati wanted to be treated just like his friends, who had also been arrested. While Frassati was being bold and loud as he spoke against the direction the Italian leaders were taking their country, he was quiet in his role of helping those in need. He never boasted about any of his work. He also didn't wait for them to come to him. He went to them. He spent hours in the poorest parts of Turin, visiting families who had nothing, praying with the sick, and even skipping meals so he could give his own food to those who were hungry. He fed and clothed the poor and tended to the sick. It was likely while tending to the sick that Pier Giorgio contracted polio. Even as he lay in pain, his concern was that his dying grandmother had the attention of the family and that medicine be delivered to a family he had been helping. In 1925, he died at just 24 years old. It was then that a light was shone on the quiet nature of his giving and charity. Expecting a fair number of politicians and friends at the young man's funeral, they could not have been prepared for the thousands of people who lined the streets bidding farewell to the saint who had shown them so much kindness. Each had their own story of how this young man had improved their own life. It was a testament to how he followed in the steps of Christ. Frassati is known today as the man of the Beatitudes because he lived a life that followed Jesus' teaching simply and joyfully. His motto was verso alto, which means to the heights, which not only reflected his love of mountain climbing, but also his desire to reach holiness. Not all of us are athletes, as I have proved. Not all of us are mountain climbers, but we are all called to be saints. And Saint Pier Giorgio Frassati leads us as a mountaineering guide on our climb toward heaven. We can follow him up a path carved with charity, humility, and love. You know, digging into Saint Pier Giorgio's story, it sounded very familiar to me. Let's see. A young boy who followed Christ, loved his faith, served the poor, and died young, where his charity was only discovered once his funeral ended up packed with people he had served. Who was that? Oh yeah, St. Carlo Acutis. They were even canonized on the same day. It's a good thing you can learn his story here. St. Pier Giorgio Frassati, pray for us.